Hey there guys, this is Malorian and this is going to be another Paintisode. Now I'll say right away that this is going to be like a pre-Paintisode because like I said last week, the next Paintisode today was going to be later. I'm going to be meeting with Terry from the Team Wales and that's going to be though like in another 4 hours. So I thought though, I felt kind of bad that if there's any regulars that actually came back and actually want to watch the Paintisode, they might have missed that. So I thought, hell, let's do 2 Paintisodes. So I'm going to do this now for about an hour. For those who haven't seen this before, I'm just going to be painting and chatting about hobby stuff for about an hour. And if you have any questions, send them my way. I didn't put up my usual video for like, let me know what your questions are, because I'll have lots to talk about Terry later. And for this now, I have had enough BS that I've had to deal with this week that I'll be able to chat for an hour, no problem. So yeah, go and grab your paints and stuff. If you're watching this in the future, then that's great. That's what this is all about. Just listen to it in the background when we paint your stuff. Now, for starters, what am I painting? Well, last week I painted the Celts from the Shadows over Camelot game, and now I'm working on these Norse. Got 4 of these guys. I know from the last time that those 4 Celts took me about 2 hours. So again, good thing to do 2 Paintisodes today so that I can just be on the final parts of this when I'm talking with Terry later. But, they look like they'll be pretty simple. They're pretty much just like some chainmail with some fur on top. Of course, being that they're Norse, I should give them blonde hair and blah, blah, blah. Should be very easy. Some other hobby things, just to get them off my table here, is I've been getting a lot more of my minions lately. So one of the things I got recently is I picked up one of the new boxes of these new alligators, the new posse, and I see this one was done horribly, which I was about to talk about. And that was the first comment I was going to have about this new posse, is that for me, they didn't go together that well. I really thought that given that this is the, upgrade kit and it's all awesome, that these pieces would just go right together nice and snug, but I've had a lot of gaps in mine. And, I thought at first maybe I put them in the wrong spots, right? Because there's 5 guys. Maybe I just put the wrong arm and the wrong leg in, but that's impossible because they're different shapes. So I don't understand why my legs and arms are giving me such massive gaps. Kind of disappointing, but at the same time, these models really changed my opinion of them, because I have 3 units of the old posse. Only 2 of them are max, the other one's a min size, so that's why I wanted to get another one. And at first I was kind of upset, because why give us a new posse kit when in fact the old one there, we only have 1 unit posse. Give us something new, right? Like posse with bows or javelins. But now that I have them in my hand, I love the look of these new posse. Like, they are awesome. So they're big, they're beefy. I love their poses, and it's going to be great to paint them up pink. But we have to get through this stuff first. Where I'm going to be using these guys for, and another one, my second witch doctor here that I have, is going to be part of my Maylock. And my list there, planning to do for Maylock, will be Maylock, a Spitter, a Bull Snapper, 3 max posse, 2 witch doctors, and then I also have Snapjaw and Wrong Eye and the Totem Hunter. And I think they'll work really well, right? I'll have 3 undead units to get from the feet, and I just love that attrition, right? Just all these gators coming at you. It's like, oh, you kill a couple, revive. Like, it should be lots of fun. As well, I picked up these guys, some of these bone grinders, so that I can do the Caliban tier. So that should be lots of fun. Not really competitive or anything like that, but it's one of those things where, first of all, people are like, whoa, what the hell, Caliban? And then second of all, whoa, what, you got pigs with your gators? What's going on here? So should be lots of fun. But again, I still got to finish these things from Shadows over Camelot first. So picking away at that. I see I have some viewers, which is great. So post up whatever questions you have and I'll get to it. But first, I want to talk about frontline gaming. No, actually, first I want to decide what major color I want to put down here first. Normally, I just kind of pick like one Oh, I actually have a question here. I wonder if this question will be visible when this starts. How long do you set yourself to paint in a session other than Paintisodes? I'm struggling to find time because I am out most nights and simply have maybe 1 or 2 hours per night during the week to do things. I can never really motivate myself to jump in for an hour, as I never seem to get much done. I feel like weekends are a better bet, and as I can block out a few hours to get something done. When I was in Fort McMurray, away from my family, where I was doing lots of painting, an hour was the minimum. You know, if I had like 20 minutes, you know, it's not like I would sneak in, do a tiny thing of paint, and then run away. That really wasn't worthwhile. I found like an hour was the minimum where I could get something really done. Oh, the camera quality is really poor today. It shouldn't be. If somebody else can, who's watching, can confirm or deny that, it's the same camera, and to me, it's looking the same. So this should be all fine. But please, someone who's watching, let me know about the camera quality. Anyway, as far as talking about painting and all the rest of it there, here, maybe the one thing I could do is I can close this movie maker. Maybe that's taking some processing speed off. We'll see if that helps us out. Anyway, as far as how much time to really put towards painting, I would actually do it in larger groups. So normally in an evening, you know, I might paint up to 5-6 hours. I would grab all my stuff, I would turn on the TV, and I would just paint. You know, I'd put on a movie, and then when that ends, I'd put on another movie. But my average period when I was basically a bachelor away from the rest of the family is I would be painting roughly 2 to 3 hours a night, and I found that was a good block to get done my models that I want to get done for that day. Yeah, I mean, now that I am back with the family, these hour sessions seem to be the most common. Like sometimes I can sneak it over to 2 hours, but an hour is something that's like, okay, the kids are in bed, I can come downstairs, I can paint for an hour, and then be back to go watch Game of Thrones with the wife or whatever else is planned. So, you know, an hour works okay. Of course, when I'm talking about painting, that doesn't do as well, but yeah, so be it. So again, I'm just trying to plan out again how I'm going to paint these guys. It might just be easier for me to start off with the brown fur chest. Well, I'll have to get in there too, and then kind of go from there. Anyway, again, if someone can confirm or deny that my picture quality is lower now for whatever reason, that would be good to hear. But as I start getting this again, while I wait for more questions to pop up, this week, a couple of big things going on. I went to a tournament yesterday, which was a massive debacle. And then as well, I've had to deal with this whole massive Frontline Gaming mat order. This is 154 mats that I'm dealing with in this order. And man, have I had a lot of issues. And I'm using the wrong brush size for this. So basically for the community, we're ordering a bajillion 154 mats at once to get a nice good discount. And the biggest thing that happened this week is that the mats came in. So I was like, oh, that's awesome, right? But then I'm being told by Canadian security, oh, you need a border broker to come in and deal with this. And what it seems to be is that they figure that since there's so many mats, they figure I'm a business and they need to work things out with me. And so I go down there. I have the documentation that Frontline Gaming gave me to basically get in, get out when I'm talking with these guys. And it was a not get in, get out type of situation. It turned into a massive interrogation as I got there. So basically I show up with my paperwork that says, you know, mats coming in and money, which I figure is probably because it's about $5 a mat. Maybe it's the shipping costs, maybe it's the handling costs, I don't know. But Frontline Gaming said, give this to the Canadian government and everything will be happy. Well, after they talked me through nicely saying, oh, okay, this is your paperwork, and so, okay, this is what it's for, blah, 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 that's when they still start getting really into it and start saying, well, okay, I guess you're trying to rip off the Canadian government. What? And what this is all about is the whole idea that this documentation was actually supposed to be claiming what these mats were worth so that at the border I can be paying the price for them, right? Because that's where they get the GST for the government, the tax on it. And so clearly if I'm claiming all these mats were only $5 each, then I'm just kind of like ripping off the GST that could be going to the government. And haha, they caught me. They're going to be taking all the mats away. It's like, all right, I guess we'll see you in court. And yeah, it turned into a massive thing where I'm trying to tell these guys, whoa, 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 you know, here's the email trail between me and Frontline Gaming. You know, there's this is just a big thing that we're doing as a community to get 40% off. You know, I'm not a business, blah, blah, blah. And then they kind of believed me there when they read through it. But then the next step was that in that thing there, Frontline was starting to wonder if I would actually be okay being like a distributor in Canada for their mats. And I mean, I'm too busy. I don't really know anything about that stuff, so I turned them down. But in part of my interrogation, all of a sudden now it's like, oh, so look at this. You are trying to sell the mats in Canada, and you should be subject to all these other taxes and laws and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, no, no. I'm just here to try and get my mat so I can give it to everybody else. I'm not trying to be a seller, blah, 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 blah. And after about, you know, like 25, 30 minutes of fighting with, you know, Canadian security at the border, they let it all go through. So I pay my tax, and everything's going to be happy. The next day, I believe it was, that gets delivered to my house. And when I go looking through the mats, I quickly discover that I'm missing a lot of them. Like, each box holds 4 mats, like these big shipping boxes that they send out, and I'm missing about 6 of those boxes. And so I start freaking out, trying to talk to Frontline Gaming and the UPS, trying to figure out where the mistake is, because I was never given a tracking number or anything like that I could go back to. And eventually I talked to UPS first. And their thing was that, well, okay, we got 19 boxes, which already seems wrong because I was shipped 24 boxes. And then when they check, they say, oh, and we delivered 18 boxes. Well, that should already be like flags going up there for you guys, because clearly if you got 19 boxes and only delivered 18, then you lost it somewhere. And so I have to start that, and I have to figure out where those other boxes went to between me and Frontline Gaming. That part does work out where Frontline Gaming gets back to me, and it turns out that when you order 154 mats all at once, they kind of ran out of stock, and so they had to send the rest to me till later, which, you know, I guess they meant to email me, but then something didn't work and the email didn't go through or something like that. But okay, at least now I know. So, yeah, now I'm just trying to balance all this stuff out, and it's like, man, you try and do something nice here, and this thing is just exploding. So I'm hoping now they find that other mat, they're able to get back to me, and everything's great. But otherwise, I still have no confirm or, you know, what deny that my camera is worse than usual. I see I got 5 people watching now. So again, if you have any questions, shoot them my way, and let me know about this camera. I mean, I could load it up and kind of re-watch it, but it's on here, and I can see I'm super clear. So unless I'm getting some sort of, I don't know, issues where it's dropping the quality because maybe YouTube is doing some upgrades or something, I don't understand why the quality would be so low. But anyway, so that's my big, huge Frontline Gaming debacle that's going on. However, for you guys who bravely listened through my rant and are fans of Frontline Gaming, I actually have a tip for you of stuff that's coming out. I got told that when the new shipment is ready and ready to come out to me in early March, they're also going to be getting their new mats. And they're going to get a couple of new designs for their mats. One of them is going to be a swamp mat. So, I mean, already they have a grass one that's really popular. They have a winter one. They have a wasteland. They have one where it's like blast zone with craters. Then they have like their urban cities and stuff. And so these 2 mats, one of them is supposed to be a swamp mat, and the other one is supposed to be like another kind of like high-tech city mat. So cool to see that stuff's coming out, and this is one of the first times I've actually got like that insider information that I'm able to pass on to, you know, viewers and so forth. But otherwise, the other big thing going on is, like I said, went to that tournament yesterday. And I've been looking forward to this tournament for a while. It was a smaller tournament, just 16 people. So, I mean, mathematically, your odds of winning in the end go up. It's going to be in Calgary, like a different city that I'm not normally in. So I get to play against new people and experience, a different meta, basically. I mean, they're 3 hours away, but still, they have their own separate meta, their own players. And, it was just something where, again, I'm trying to make up for some of the bad playing I've been doing lately. And the massive mistake I made is that the night before, we had some friends over for some board games, because as you see, I like board games as well. And we were up to 3 in the morning playing board games. And there was, of course, lots of heavy drinking going on as well. And yeah, after that, that's when so I went to bed at 3, had to wake up at 5, then drive 3 hours to get to Calgary, just feeling sick from all the drinking and feeling super tired because of the non-sleeping. And I knew it was going to be trouble. And especially because there was 2 very high, what do I want to say, how to describe this, high-profile players. Both Bryn and Tyler, 2 players from the Team Canada, were both there. So these are both guys that if there's first, second, third, they're probably going to be 2 of those 3. So if I want to be going up there, I'm in the running with those guys. So that was the first thing. I don't really want to ruin the battle reports for those who haven't seen, but let's just say that for one good thing, I got to face one of them, so that was awesome. However, as a bad thing, I made some key errors. My last game in particular, very, very sloppy, massive mistakes made, and yeah, very, very frustrating. And I've never really had a game before where I apologized to my opponent for how bad I was playing. Sometimes when you make a mistake in a game, you laugh it off and it's like, oh, ha, ha, that's so stupid. But this thing, I mean, we were 2 competitive players that should have had a very tight competitive game. And right away on, I believe it was turn 2, I just shit the bed. And I just put myself into such a bad situation that I knew that there was no coming back. And yeah, I just had to pause. I was like, wow, I had to explain to him that, I really am like running on empty and got almost no sleep and blah, 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 blah. And he tried he was really nice about it. And even later on, like, he was going to let me take some things back and stuff. I was like, no, that's not how I play. What I do is what I do. If I'm dumb, I got to pay for it, right? Make your bed and then sleep in it. But here we are at the spot where I'm waiting now to get that call back to see if I make it to the next round of applicants for the Team Canada, and I'm playing like utter garbage. And it's just, if I was in their shoes and I was trying to decide who I wanted to represent Canada, I wouldn't pick me. James Rose saying that the camera looks fine, so that's awesome. Good to know that I'm not just kind of like been blabbing here on a really fuzzy screen for 20 minutes. But still, for you guys who are watching, got 60 in now, let me know what you want me to talk about. Let me know if you're working on a list. Post up your list and I can chat about it. I want to be talking about the things you want to be listening about, is what it really comes down to. So, as far as my little Norse guys here so far, I've painted the brown on them, so their little, fur tunic and then their boots. Next up, I think I will do the skin. And maybe I should do the wood handles, because you kind of want to always, here's a little tip, like, again, I'm no pro painter, but I do have a couple of tips, and I know that whenever you paint, you want to paint from the inside of the model out. Now, of course, this brown I just did is not on the inside. However, I did it because it's kind of the majority of the model. It's almost like putting on a base coat. It's like blah, 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 get your main color all over, and then you work on it from there. past that, you want to work on the inside of the model. So again, if it was something like this, where I'm holding up a shield, you know, I probably want to paint the skin here first and work my way out from the model. Otherwise, if I painted the shield and then try and do like the shirt and the shield and the shirt, and then I try getting the neck after, well, I'm probably going to mess up and I'll have to come back. It's a lot easier to paint this first, then the shirt, then, you know, the arm, then the shield. It's, again, this is probably like basic 101, but this is my best stuff, man. So I'm trying to offer it out there. I still think it'd be funny one day if I was to actually do this with one of the really good painters, like, you know, if it was with Menal John or Kieran Dunleavy or something like that, or, you know, anyone, the number of gamers out there that also do the painting stuff, just because here I am offering this garbage, like, whoa, that's it? You know, you don't want to be talking about, like, you know, wet palettes or something more fancy. It's like, no, that's all I got. So anyway, with that in mind, we're going to now start painting the wood on this. And another thing that's going on here right now is that March is coming up, which is where my birthday is, so woohoo, but it's also so busy. And normally, you know, if you have a tournament a month, that's pretty good. That might be different in the States where there's a bigger population and it's a lot easier to travel and get a game in every month. So man, that's easy. But a tournament every month is pretty awesome. If you can get 2 tournaments every month, you know, that's really good. Anything above that is gravy. Well, for us here in Alberta, we have currently, and I mean there could be more announced after, 5 tournaments in March. And it's just crazy. It's just all the way through, just tournament. And so for most gamers, this is just like the dream, right? Everybody is just super pumped up. You know, you can just, even if you can't make all of them, you're guaranteed to get, you know, a bajillion games in March, and everyone's super happy. Not me, because my March is crazy busy with birthday parties and all the other jazz. I have a winter camp I'm going to. So out of all these 5 tournaments, I think I can make one. Like, one's pretty clear I can do, actually, but I mean, if I go to anything else, it's like, okay, I can go to this tournament, and then I have to drop out of the last game so I can make this party in time. And I mean, that's not bad. You know, going to a tournament and getting in, let's say, 3 games against new players and all this fun stuff, you know, that's not a bad thing, but it does kind of suck where you know that you can't go all the way. You can't win any awards. Well, maybe, you know, maybe I could go 3-1 and win 3rd place or something like that. But man, and as well, because of how they go with strength of schedule, I know I'm ripping people off, right? You know, if I go against people and let's say I win or lose, either way, they're like, hey, that Malorian guy, you know, he's going to really raise up my strength of schedule. And then I drop last game. So it's just, whoosh, you know, it's a guaranteed lower strength of schedule because I dropped. And that's just not really fair to other people. So I don't know. I would rather play. And that's the thing too, is that when you have a month like this where there's so many tournaments, trying to arrange just like casual games gets harder as well, because everyone's like, well, why would I go to your place for this day to play some casual games and pickup games when there's this tournament going on, right? I'll just see you at the tournament, buddy. So, oh well. But at least as far as that goes, we do have our Alberta Invitational, and currently I am sitting in a spot where I am going to get an invitation to go to it, so that should be lots of fun. There's also the big GarageCon that's going to be in April, where we hear the guys from Tom Guan is going, and I wonder what the full list is now of like big names that are coming to go after the Mayhem Cup, because that's really the biggest thing that drew people in. Guys like Trevor from Chain Attack, he was going to try and make it last year but couldn't make it work. But now that we stole the Mayhem Cup, now people really want to come at us. Got a lot of things here. Sergeant Death 1942, what are your thoughts on War Machine Horde's painting rules for tournaments? I recently went to a big convention in Australia, CanCon, where there were about 80 War Machine and Hordes players duking it out. I was really disappointed to see almost half of the armies were either unpainted or more or less just undercoated, and 2 or 3 colors. It made a whole event look a little bit ugly compared to the whole miniature games. I like the idea that I can bring some unpainted stuff to a tournament, and it certainly helps more people to get into the game quicker, but I feel it also might detract from the game overall. What are your thoughts on painting rules for tournaments versus making it easier to get into the game? You know, this is definitely something I've given a lot of thought to, and my current feeling is that the best way to do it is through prize support. So, I mean, what I do for painting is I say, hey, there's a prize for best painted, and there's also going to be another draw for everyone who is painted. So, hey, you know, if you are just going to do like the basics and get some colors on there, that's awesome. And to encourage you, even though you're not going to win the top one, hey, I'm going to throw your name into a jar, and I'll pull out one, and then, you know, the winner wins $100. You know, and in that way, people are like, wow, you know, I think I want to paint my stuff up. Now, as well, when you're going to these big events, you know, one of the things you want with these big events is for it to be a spectacle. And if you have a bunch of the silver and gray armies, it kind of loses that luster. So, again, I wouldn't want to force painting because, hey, if somebody wants to go to this big con, but they just don't have stuff painted, you know, you don't want to kick them out the door. So I think prize support is the best way to encourage people to bring things in. Now, of course, extra prize support in one area means you're losing it somewhere else, but it doesn't even need to be big, right? If you're talking one of these big cons, $100 going towards prize support isn't really that big of a deal. So that's something I really would suggest. Arrow Zero saying, regarding the new army starters, which one would you consider best for newbies? Would Legion be difficult for starting out? Should I go Crix? Both have models that I find very interesting, and I've saved up enough for 1 or 2 army boxes. So I'm assuming that he's talking about the newer, like, army, like, not the starter 15 or 11 point armies that they have, but the newer, larger ones that Privateer Press come out with. Well, for that, like I normally say, for a straight-up newbie who is just fresh into the game, I find War Machine to be better to get into than Hordes, because Hordes has that extra bit where you have to be worried about balancing your fury and, you know, trying to remember that, oh, okay, I get to use this animus from this here, and when I cast it from the beast, it counts as an animus, but when I cast it from the caster, then it's a spell, and blah, blah, blah. So I really push people to go for the more War Machine. And with that, I mean, the one that I've been liking the most, I mean, Crix is always an easy one. The Crix one is good. Have no problem really there. The Signar one, I mean, you know what? If somebody's coming over from 40K, I would say go Signar, because they're used to in 40K with being a shooty army, and I mean, Signar will be right up their alley. So that might be a way you want to send them. If you have somebody that's more into fantasy and is looking more for like a melee style army, then hey, you can send them the way of Crix. Khador is kind of like a middle ground, which you can kind of do it either way. I don't think I've seen one so far for Retribution, but again, they could be a good starter for someone that is in coming from a 40K background. But overall, the main thing to take from this is that newbies should probably stick to War Machine rather than Hordes, and as well, Privateer Press has done a very good job making all those boxes very balanced and having a good set of models that you want to start with, right? It's not like, okay, what's not selling? Throw it into a box. They really went through and picked very good models that will give you a good base to learn the game, and they're models that you're going to continue with, right? I mean, that's one of the complaints you get against the little faction boxes. It's like, well, later on, you're actually just going to probably run 1 jack. So starting off with like these 3 jacks, you know it's going to be a waste. say like in the circle one, when you start with 2 Arguses, it's like, well, you're probably never going to use an Argus, and if so, probably just one. You don't really get, it's not that big of a deal when it's 50 points, and the vast majority of the box are things you're going to be using on later. So either way, I think just in general, just saying that those army boxes that Privateer Press is making, if you're looking into getting into a faction, instead of just buying random models, look into getting one of those. I mean, hell, and as well, it's also great savings, right? You get a great discount through that. So monetarily, it's a smart way to go. Oh, forgot to paint this guy's underwear and his underwear. Is it wrong that I'm looking up their skirts? All of a sudden, I realized how disturbing that might be coming across. Like, ho, ho, ho. Your undies aren't painted. Oh, ho, ho. But, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, one of those things I can say, too, from those army boxes is they just make it more tempting to start new factions. For us vets, where it's like, well, I could start a new faction, but do I want to spend the money, blah, 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 blah. When they come out and they have the big savings like they do, and it's the models that you'd want anyway, it really makes you wonder, like, oh, is this the time that I should be starting that extra faction? I don't know. So far I've been holding back. I mean, I got enough factions. Minions, now that they're legit, they won a major tournament. Not that that really matters, but looking at them a little bit, I think if I was to go to that tournament there where I can have to drop out the last game, I should bring my Gators or something like that. Something where, okay, I know I'm going out for fun, and let's take something a little bit different. I don't need to go in there, try and crush face with Siege and Haley 2, and then just ditch out. Might as well just state from the beginning, I'm here for fun, guys. Sergeant Death 1942. Wild speculation time. What do you think the next Horde faction will be? Theme rules. I really, really, really hope that it is I always forget what they're called, but it's the race that the Totem Hunter is, because they're just really, really cool. I've heard a couple of other people making the same speculations, but I mean, just this idea of units where they all have leap, right? Like that's, how like Legion has like Isle of Sight across the board. Think of a faction that has leap across the board where they move up and then they can leap over. Like all of a sudden your ideas of having protective lines and this is my forward and he's going to be screening the guys in the back, like that's all off the table because these guys are coming and jumping all over the place. Units having ambushing coming from the side. Wouldn't it be cool to actually have like a beast have ambush? You'd have to, it'd be balanced because your warlock would have to be kind of over there to make sure that it's there to be able to force it, as opposed to, well, I mean, just, man, it's always silly when you start giving serious consideration into something that's just speculation. But for example, let's just say your Razorback Spitter or your Ravagore had ambush and could come from the side. Would you actually really need to have a Warlock be in range of it? I mean, a Ravagore on its own can come in and spit on whatever it wants. I guess that's the sound it makes. But, it doesn't really need to boost the hits, a jack or anything like that. It would like to boost damage, but it doesn't have to. But maybe that's the balance, It would have limited use unless you're bringing it where your Warlock is anyway. I think that'd be really cool. I don't know what the beast would be for that race, but Privateer Press, make it happen. No way anybody from Privateer Press watches this. Just not happening. Although I'll believe. I'll stay with the faith that maybe one day they'll watch. One of the things I've been noticing that I've been really happy with is that when I first switched over from doing fantasy to War Machine, is I was getting extra downvotes where all the fantasy guys were upset that I was doing War Machine now. So I was getting all these downvotes, whether I did something dumb or not. I mean, I'm sure some of those downvotes were very well deserved, but I knew some of others were just being mad that I was doing War Machine rather than fantasy. Well, that's kind of disappeared, and I have not got a downvote in a long time. It's been kind of, making me happy with my choice, where people are enjoying just straight up the stuff I put out. I didn't get that with fantasy. I mean, people liked it, but I always had the most I go is maybe like 10 videos, and then somebody would be upset with what I'm doing and downvote and blah, blah, blah. And it leaves me wondering what I did wrong. Did I make a mistake? But so far, you guys have been happy, and views are going up. So apparently, I'm gonna thank you guys for that, right? My hope is the reason why my views are going up is that you guys like what I'm watching or what I'm making, and that you're telling your friends, like, hey, go check out that Malorian guy. He makes lots of battle reports. And I think I do. I mean, I put out what? Probably an average of 2 battle reports a week, so that's not bad. You know, that's pretty good. And again, I mean, I haven't even heard a lot of things lately of how I should improve, which is bad because I should always be trying to improve. But the fact that you guys have had very little complaints makes me feel good that I'm serving up what you guys want to see. Pretty much the latest complaint I had or suggestion was that I really got to make sure that whenever I'm introducing an army, that I got to introduce the faction as well. It's one of those things where going in, I kind of assume that if I say, oh yeah, I'm up against Vale too, that I assume, that I'm talking about Legion of Everblight. But hey, one of the types of people that I'm appealing to, especially since I'm doing like the Warhammer 101s and stuff, are the new players, and they don't know. Right? Like, who is this Vale? Who is this Lilith? So I've been trying to make a concentrated effort to always state what faction people are from. But I'm saying that, I'm sure I miss it the majority of the time. So I'm going to try and get better on that. I noticed, too, that in my tired state, when I put out my last battle report for the Steamroller, that I forgot to put the music in there, so derp there. But hey, I was tired. I got an excuse to use at least. Doogie44, could you describe every faction in a few sentences? Yeah, that could be fun. And like, am I doing this from like the perspective of like describing what they're like, or like in a comical sense? But anyway, let's start with hordes, and let's go through the list. Circle. Did they say a couple of sentences or a couple of words? In a couple of sentences. Oh, okay, that's a lot easier. Circle is all about the lightning strike. They're all about the sniper. They're jumping through. They have very high mobility, and they'll be able to get to their targets. And they also have, okay, I'm not doing this very well. So let's start again. And I have let's make it one. I have one sentence to describe the faction. So Circle. They are a sniper-based faction that revolves around movement and control. There's that one. Legion. They are a glass hammer styled faction that revolves around focusing their strength and overcoming before to ensure that there's not enough to counterattack. Scorn, a faction that focuses on brute strength and using multiple sources of synergy to one greater effect. Troll Bloods, they are a faction. Just leave there. They are a faction. They don't deserve anything else but that. Past that. Troll Bloods, they are a faction based on resilience and uncertainty for the opponent, given their tough mechanism. Minions, they are the baby faction that is, I would say that, like the Blind Water, they're coming to puberty, but they are a limited new faction with some serious threats. That seems like a good one. War Machine. Signar. They are the range-based faction that also has some of the best casters in the game. Krix, they are the infantry-based faction that have the actual best casters in the game. Menoth is the faction set up to be the most reliable and consistent. Khador is the faction based around, I'm drawing blanks here, guys. Right. Khador, how to sum them up in one go. Maybe they're the middle ground. Khador is a faction based around mainly melee. However, they are also accompanied by man, I have to go back and think of this because I was going to say that they have a good mixed army, but their range units are actually kind of limited. Would they actually be the most skew type army? Because they either have ones that are super high armor or they're all about the high defense. That could be the way that you describe Khador. They're the unloved Russians. They're the unloved ginger child of War Machine. That no matter what spectacular things they do, they always seem to be overlooked. We'll leave it as that. Now I almost want to go back and define them as somebody like a stereotype in the family. Retribution is a combined armed focused faction with many specialized troops. Well, units. Be the Jack or whatever, they're just highly, specialized with a lot of interesting powers. Convergence is the limited release, insanity inducing faction as you try and figure out all your little inductions and everything. And then mercenaries are they're the sluts of War Machine. They work for everyone else but themselves, unless they're actually being Earthbreakers. They're probably the colossal faction. If you're going to describe mercenaries seriously as somebody coming in playing mercenaries, they're the colossal faction. You don't see anyone playing mercenaries unless it's based on probably two colossals. So, well, one, but yeah, hopefully that answers your question. A little bit fun to do. We are coming up about 40 minutes. Like I said, I do want to try and, not that I got a lot done in this period of time, but I am going to try and keep this one to an hour so I can get done some other work and then maybe have a nap before I get up at midnight my time for the second Paintisode with Terry. But hopefully then I can get the skin done. If I come across here and I can get all the skin done on these guys, I'd be pretty happy where that's at. So if you guys have any last things you want me to talk about in this time here. Otherwise, one of the tournaments I might be able to make to you next month here, that's kind of an interesting, different one, is one where it's the end of the Journeyman League for them. But what they're going to do for that then is have it so that it's a one list. So normally that's not a very good thing because all of a sudden paper, rock, scissors can be a really big part of it. However, they are doing it so you have 10 points of specialists. So that's kind of interesting. All of a sudden that does bring kind of a two-list element to it because, for my brother, he was talking about how with his Krix, he could always have his Raiders in his normal list, and then if he ever really needs that shooting in there, well, you just trade them out for Nis Hunters. So, I mean, specialists can kind of mitigate that there. But I'm not really certain whether I even want to go to that one. You know, like I said, I'm not super happy with the one list format. As I mean, what some people will do for that will take a really big skew and then just hope that they can glide all the way to the end without facing someone who actually has an answer to it. And you know, I just don't want to be in that position where I go up against the Doom Reaver spam, or if I go against Kayazi spam or whatever. There you go, khador. How about the jank? But and then not having the answer, and it's like, well, there's nothing I can really do about it. Because, I mean, I guess you do have your specialist, and that can help. But then again, sometimes there's only just so much they can do. And we can have some pretty hard ones. I mean, if you try and take a balanced army, and then all of a sudden you just face like, oh, looks like I'm up against double Earthbreaker or triple Earthbreaker, right? We got Gordon triple Earthbreaker. Well, good luck. If you didn't take enough ways to deal with them, and you don't have a scenario come down that actually allows you to, you know, block them out and go for scenario or something like that, it can just be game over. But that's the nice thing about then going with somebody like Scar for what he was saying there, is because she really answers a lot of skews. You know, if you have high armor, hey, I get +5 strength. If you have high defense, hey, I got dark guidance. So that should actually work out fairly well for him. Still trying to decide who on Signar I'd take for that. Probably Haley too, as she can really answer a lot of things. And then I can either have my shooty unit in there, or I can pull them out, say, for another Forge Guard unit. You know, so should be interesting. Some more questions here, a lot of more questions here. Sergeant Death 1942. I felt a little disappointed when I heard that khador is best spamming troops instead of jacks. Do you think they will ever change up the meta enough to bring back a bigger jack list? Well, I mean, they do still have the jack list in that they have Karchev. So if you do love jacks and you want to play khador, you should probably be looking at Karchev. Harkovic, if you really want to, could be running some janky shooty lists if you like. You know, take a bunch of the destroyers and just pew, 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 lob away and try and shoot things up. But is this the way that War Machine works, where your warcasters only have so much focus and you can only run so many things? And I mean, you don't even have like a 10 focus caster like Harbinger or something that then can take that up. So yeah, if you want to do lots of jacks, look to Karchev. He's probably the guy you want to take for that. Flame Knight Dragon saying, is there any units for any factions that are still metal would you like to see get converted to plastics? Okay, I'm just making sure. I was about to just throw out there that I want to see all of them go to plastics, but is there anything there that's metal that I want to stay metal? I can't think of anything. And so straight up, I'm just going to say them all. Every single thing that's currently metal, I would rather see plastic. And the reason for that is that plastic is A, easier to convert, B, lighter, and C, is a lot stronger. Like, you're not going to see it break as often as the metal. I mean, clearly, if you have a one-piece metal model, yeah, that's not going to break. But if you have something like the Nis Hunters, where it's like, oh, I dropped it. Okay, I have to now glue everything back together. As opposed to if it was plastic, you know, my plastic orcs, I just throw those guys all over the place, and I don't really care. So, yeah, everything that's metal, I'd like to see go to plastic. And then, of course, you see the metals get chipped a lot more for the paint. So going to plastic would be a lot better for that, too. Matt Ashaw. Would you offer any tips for beating a dwarf gun line with mostly goblin army? Sorry if my Warhammer question is out of place. That's okay. We can talk some Warhammer. The main thing you want to do in a gun line of dwarves is realize that they probably have a lot of war machines. And war machines can be fairly easy to take out. Now, that's kind of untrue for dwarves in that they're stubborn and can be a real pain. But then again, I mean, if you ever get a chariot to them, or if you have some boar boys, right? Like this is one of the funny times where boar boys can do their work. Anything that gets to them can really take them out and get some early points. Now, you also would have to worry about if you took some boar boys that they would just go and organ gun you down. But another way you can attack it is don't take anything that's worth a lot of points. You know, come at them with just a whole bunch of goblins. You know, just goblins upon goblins upon goblins, and say, yeah, shoot all you want. You might misfire and destroy yourself, and then all of a sudden that's points in the bank for me. And then when I get to you, I'm not going to try and beat your dwarf blocks. I'm just going to try and hold them in place. And then I'm going to swarm all the shooters, get their points. And again, I only need 100 points to win. So if you don't destroy my blocks of 100 night goblins, too bad for you. Meanwhile, I'm going to be killing off your stuff. So that's what I would do. It's funny. I mean, as soon as I talk about Warhammer, that's where I start seeing the viewers drop away. It's just the way it is. People want to hear about the War Machine. But we got about 10 minutes left. I've left that paint on there too long. It's not really coming off the brush. Hate when I do that. You know, you get distracted. You start talking about something. You don't wash off your brush. And then all of a sudden it's on there so hard that to pull out that paint, you're pulling out bristles, whatever you call it. And when you pull out enough of those, and the whole brush just falls apart. But 2 more guys, get the skin on there. And that should be happy. But anyway, going back to what I was talking about before, probably going to be going with a Haley 2 list. I was almost wondering if I should just be that guy and go there with a double Stormwall list. You know, maybe that's the time where I should be trying the P. Haley double Stormwall or something like that. And then just walk in and say, okay, you don't have an answer to it, you're going down. But the problem is if I ever run into something where it really can knock me out, then I'll be in that same situation, right? That's the problem with throwing the skew, is that if you make that bet, you got to realize that it could turn on you really quick. Now, luckily for me, I actually have a lot of practice doing double Stormwall. So that could really work out. Maybe I should do like my old Kane 2 double Stormwall. That's a pretty nice one that kind of covers a lot of different matchups. And a lot of bad ones too. That are typically like, oh man, double Stormwall can't deal with this. Then all of a sudden when you run with Kane 2, he can use his feet to take out whatever is threatening to you. And then, hey, Stormwalls, do your thing. I hooked you all up, buddies. Yeah. And then normally, what do I run with that? I run Kane 2, Reinhold, Squire, double Stormwall, one being run by the junior. I believe I ran him with 2 units of Rangers. Black 13th. Let's make the list right now. Oh, we got Chance and Counter watching, so we'll deal with their questions instead. They're another channel you should be checking out. So I'll make sure. I'm gonna give you guys a shout out first. I like doing that whenever I can. I mean, that's another thing where I think the War Machine community should be trying to support each other more. Chance encounter. War Machine. Oh, it's not gonna come up with it. Anyway, I have started Cricks, and I know their strength is infantry. However, you have mentioned that at a higher level of play, most players have an answer to Cricks, Dude Swarm. Are there any casters or strategies for playing Cricks to bring a different threat to the table to make the opponent have to make tough decisions about what list to drop or how to fight them? I'm focused on infantry right now, but just curious about the strategies for mixing up what Cricks can bring. Thanks. Well, first of all, the thing that Cricks typically bring as their counter meta, because that is very true. Everybody normally has a list that can deal with infantry, and they have a list that can deal with armor. And so when you have Cricks that's really just all infantry, it's like, well, I'll just pull out my anti-infantry list then. So what a lot of people do is they go with Mortenebra. She runs Cricks Jacks fantastically, has a lot of different tricks, and can do that just fine. Myself, I'm actually very interested in seeing the Scar 2 double Kraken. I think that could do extremely well. And basically what you do is go and jam them down the throat, and then when it's time to deal with the heavies that it can actually deal with your Kraken, then you go and you pop your feet and you say, okay, that heavy, and that heavy, you can't attack me anymore. And all of a sudden, you go in there, you're able to really clear things out. They can't counter. And I think that would work very well. But that's my jank. The popular opinion is Mortenabra, though. She's the way to go. Now I was supposed to go back and deal with that Kane 2 jank. Well, I guess I don't have to go to forward commander. I could always just do the math in my head. Who wants to do math anymore, right? That's why they got all these computer programs. So you don't need to do that anymore. That's okay. I can finish off the skin and then I can do this. So, okay, Kane 2. He gives you 5 jack points. So that means after 2 storm walls, you're at 38, which goes down to 33. When you add in the squire, that's going to be then 35. So I have 15 more points. Of those 15 points, one has to be Reinhold. Then I need Junior. So that's going to mean I have 11 points left. Oh, so I don't even get into Black 13th. It's going to be double Rangers and then a Tinker. And that's really it. Yeah, that's right. That's too bad. I thought that I got the 13th in there. Maybe that's when I dropped Junior and I ran both onto Kane. But the problem is that Kane doesn't want to run the Storm Wall. You know, he wants to have all that focus for himself so he can, you know, shoot and do cool things. So either way, that'll probably be the list I bring. And then all of a sudden, my 10-point switch out that I can do is I can always say I'll drop out the Rangers and put in, say, what do I want to switch that with? I mean, what am I going to see that's really going to say I need to change that up? I mean, would I want to switch it out so I get more infantry in there that I can really block things down? No, I'd want to throw in Alexia and, you know, something, or would I want to be changing out? Like maybe if I see a lot of ethereal, but then Kane can just deal with that junk. What's actually going to be my specialist in that list? I mean, I guess, okay, here it is. If I know that's going to be, shooting isn't really an option because maybe I'm up against Lilith 2 or I'm up against Barnabas or something like that. So Rangers don't really matter. So Rangers will be the 10 points that come out, which pretty much has to be the way that it is anyway in a list like that. And then to replace that, I can either put in 2 units of Stormblades. That's really easy. Or I could also be switching it up so that I have more blockers in there. Although, I mean, I can always block charge lanes and do that with Stormblades. There's nothing wrong with that. Then again, maybe I want to be throwing in Boom Howlers. You know, he has the thing where you can't be knocked down. So whenever you make your super tough, you're just standing up there. That could be a good thing to be throwing in. So many options. So many jank. And I bet you most of the time, I just wouldn't even bother with the specialist. I'd be like, whatever. Kane 2 and my storm walls, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. And I'll just totally derp it up. Doesn't look like there's any new questions so far. Really getting to the end here. So I would like to say, just in case I forget at the end, remember that this is just the first pre-Paintisode. I'm going to be joined by Terry for what I might call the Welsh-isode later. That's going to be in now 3 hours from now. I'll be coming back to do that with him. And that should be really interesting as we talk about what he's going to be doing to set up for their team Wales for going to the World Team Championship and his prep for other events he's going to. I'm sure we're going to talk about Bradigus and Stones and all the usual things that War Machine players like to talk about. So if you're up for it, I don't know where you are in the world watching this, but you might want to come back and watch that. see me finish these Norsemen. Hopefully, anyway. There's not a whole bunch left I have to do on these guys. It's really the silver. Okay, no, I'm lying. There's lots I got to do on these guys still. I keep on looking at them as simple board game models, but then I always have to realize they have a lot more details than I give them credit for. That's what happened to the Celts. Oh, yeah, I'll paint these 4 guys in an hour, no problem. And then I barely got it done in 2 hours. But either way, this is how my 4 Norsemen are looking at after an hour. You know, it's playable. You know, if I had to use them, I could. I mean, really, a couple more minutes to do the silver on the axe and the helmet, and it'd look a lot better. But, you know, a little bit of 2 hours of work. They're not too bad. You know, for a board game, I could use them. But I'll be finishing them off. So either way, let me know what you guys were painting. If you have any questions as well, I can always come back and answer them anyway. But yeah, we'll catch you later. So thanks for watching, and see ya.